Shalom, John.
Shalom, Judith.
Welcome again to our overview of the Parsha for this week, which is entitled Bamidbar, and it's taken from Numbers chapter 1, verse 1 through chapter 4, verse 49. And in my Torah, it's divided into two sections. The first section is called In the Desert, and that's from Numbers 1 to 2:34. The second part is priestly service from Numbers 1 through 49. And basically what they're doing is taking a census.
Yeah, they're taking, only two censuses, really, which has to do with the counting of the people, but not just the counting of the people, but counting of the families. So it's kind of personal. They're counting, God wanted them to count the people, to me, to show them how many people they started with when they left Egypt and how many people they'll end up with when they end up going into the Promised Land. Yeah, it's called Numbers, but it's their time in the desert, their 40 years in the desert. Mm-hmm. One other thing I want to mention about this census, as I said, it was mentioned, it's by the families, and it has to do with the lineage and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Very interesting, very personal. It's not abstract. The last census was also done when they were going to war. They wanted to find out how many soldiers they would have. But my focus wasn't on the census per se, but was the desert experience that they were going through. And this desert experience was a transition place between Exodus out of Egypt and before the entrance into the Promised Land. Now you may say, well, they shouldn't have been in the desert that long, it's because of rebellion. That's true. But still, they were in the desert for a long period of time. And the desert living has some very fascinating features. One, and I had to make notes because I've got so many of them, it's a place of isolation. Mm-hmm. And in this isolation, there's no ego, no competition. Everybody's equal, which means they can devote more of their time to God. He would be their main focus. And the Song of Solomon, I've learned, points to this marriage. Basically, it's a marriage in the desert. But a lot of the verses in the Song of Solomon points to this exodus from Egypt into the desert. It's where God calls His bride and various other things. This desert living is a love story that's told in the Song of Solomon. And what other things that I mentioned? They were focused on God. It was a time in transition from of being taken out of slavery and brought into the Promised Land, into freedom. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of distractions, I'm going to say, in our daily living outside of the promise, outside of the desert. We tend to lose our focus fairly quickly. Mm-hmm. We don't live modest. We see what other folks have and say, gee, that would be nice to have. Mm-hmm. And there's some competition. But in the desert, you live modestly. There's no competition. A very plain and simple life where your focus is on God.
Well, another thing that's happening also is that sundown Saturday begins Shavuot. So we're
almost 50 days.
50 days out from Passover.
Mm-hmm.
And so Shavuot is, again, if you read in Acts what happened on Shavuot, it said that the Holy Spirit was given then. Mm-hmm. Also, the Torah was given on Shavuot. Mm-hmm. Also, so this is, and it's called Yom HaBikurim, the Feast of the First Fruits. So this is a very important holiday. Let me take that back. This is a very appointed time of God, not a holiday. It is an appointed time of God. And so this is very exciting. And it is normally they read the entire book of Ruth on Shavuot. So we should have a very exciting discussion this Friday.
Okay.
Anything else?
No. Hope to see you hope you listen on Friday and we'll expound it more.
Yes, this concludes our overview of Bamidbar and Shavuot, and we will expound more on Shabbat. We hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Shavuot Tov.
Shavuot Tov.
Be still, my soul, the Lord is on thy side. Bear patiently